Greetings, YouTube. Imagine you're a wizard. You have a copy of Polymorph Any Object at your disposal. Now, the beautiful thing about that spell, is, beyond its versatility, you can do almost anything when it comes to polymorphing an object from one thing to another, is there's a handy little chart that shows you the relationship between the item that you're starting with and your end item. You're taking one object to another in your beginning form and the end form. And depending on how these two objects relate to each other will dictate the duration of the spell. So for example, if it's the same kingdom, like animal to animal, vegetable to vegetable, mineral to mineral, it has a duration factor of +5. And you add up these things together to get a final target number. If it's the same class, so you stay in the animal kingdom, say, and it's the same class within the animal kingdom, so you've got your avians and reptiles and mammals. We'll stick with mammal. And then it's the same size. Well, if it's the same class as +2, it's the same size as +2. So if you're going from like a medium-sized dog to a medium-sized human, that's the same. And then if there's a relation, like for example, a twig to a tree or a wolf fur to a wolf, that's also a +2. So you have a direct connection between the two objects. So if you want to turn a fishing pole into a fish, that's much different when you're turning a fishing pole into a tree. Fishing pole was originally, we would in a fantasy world for the most part. So there's a connection there. Not so much a connection between fishing pole and a fish. And then you have your intelligence. Now, if you go from low intelligence to high intelligence, it's not going to last as long. If you go high intelligence to low intelligence, it will last as long. And if you're on parity, it will last with +2. So you take these numbers and you add them up. And if you have a 0, duration of the spell is like 20 minutes. And that's a pebble to a human, for example. I've got a little pebble right here. If I take this pebble and I cast Polymorph Any Object and turn it into a person, it's going to last for 20 minutes. Better have a brief conversation. If you are changing a marionette to a human, even though it's a wooden marionette, it's shaped like a human, it's designed to emulate a human in very rough form, like even one of the little clay modeling ones would probably work, that's going to last an hour. You can get a little more philosophical with the person. Now, if you're doing, like, say, from a human to a marionette, that's from a higher form to a lower form. No conversation, but it's going to last 3 hours. If you do from a lizard to a manticore, there's some connection there. That's going to last 12 hours. If you go from a sheep to a wool coat, and again, there's definitely a connection between a living sheep, and a wool coat, it's going to last 2 days. And then you better hope that you take the coat off before it turns into a sheep. It's going to get very heavy. And if you have, like, taking an animal which is directly related, for example, a shrew, which is a mammal, and a manticore, which is also a mammal, that's going to last 1 week, going from lower intelligence to higher intelligence. Though, admittedly, manticore isn't the most intelligent creature in the world. It's still more intelligent than a shrew. And then lastly, if you have a manticore, which is fairly intelligent, you turn it into a shrew, you're going down in size and in lowering its intelligence, it's going to be a permanent situation. Okay, so you got that. So I had a thought. This is a very geeky thought. This is a very D&D gamer thought. This is not something that is going to make sense to anyone outside our hobby. Wizards have familiars. So, a familiar, even at first level, has an intelligence of 6, which is inside the range of a human. Technically, a human could have a 3 and still be considered a human. And by the time a wizard is 9th level, their familiar has an intelligence of 10. That's average for a commoner. That's the average intelligence for all of the humanoid races, unless they have a penalty to their intelligence. And by the time you hit 19th level, they have an intelligence of 15, which is 50% higher than the average for a human or most other humanoid species. So the wizard has access to a Polymorph Any Object spell. And they've got a rat familiar. What if they turn the rat into a person? That would be a permanent change. Even though the size is wrong, all the other factors are close enough that that's a permanent change. Is that person still the wizard's familiar? Now, at first, you may say, well, that's absurd. Ha ha ha. We have a certain level of precedence here. There is a product out there called Noble Wild, available for 3.5 and Pathfinder. I recommend the Pathfinder version. I've discussed it here on my channel. And it allows animals to be playable player character races, and they can have familiars, which are people. So you could be playing a mouse with a dwarven familiar. So we have a precedent there. We have case law, if you will. So, if you transform the rat to a human, are they still a familiar? I'm on the fence on this one. Because that opens up a whole lot of things, doesn't it? Let's discuss this. And I know this is very much in the veins of, can God himself create a rock so large he himself cannot move it? Yes, I get this. How many angels condense on the head of a pin? Can a wizard turn their familiar into a human? Let's put our pointy wizard hats on and whip out our wands, metaphorically, and talk about magic spells and familiars.